matter with Joe Lodge?
George, this is your first chance for a feature picture. I haven't been able to get an okay on Joe Lodge for 10 years.
Why not? Look, Maggie, times have changed, right?
What, did he take the Fifth Amendment or something?
As far as I know, Joe was never subpoenaed. Nobody actually said he was a card-carrying communist.
Well, what did they say?
How should I know?
Who are you arguing with, George?
Nobody. Look, he's right for the part. Okay, then, why not Joe Lodge?
Why ask for trouble?
Are you going to check with Comus Inc.?
Why should I?
Well, they're financing the picture.
My contract with Comus is very clear. They don't have cast approval.
All right. You want me to make Joe Lodge a firm offer?
Yeah, I want Joe Lodge.
Okay. Okay. Where do I find him?
That's fine.
How's that feel?
Pinches a little.
Really? Well, there's plenty of room in there. I wouldn't want to give it to you any bigger.
Joe? Here's a phone.
Oh. Why don't you try it out? I'll be right back.
I don't know.
Hello? Yes, speaking. George Vay. Hello, George. Well, yes, it has been a long time. Yes, that's right. You were the assistant director when I was in... Well, that's closer to 11 years. No, I've done a couple things since then. I've been keeping busy. 55th Street in about an hour? Well, yes, I think I can come up. Oh, it'll be great to see you again, too. Thanks, George.
Lily, are you all right?
I don't like tears in my soup.
Are you sure, Pop?
It was a firm offer. I went up to the office and George Vay said, Joe, I want you to be in my picture. Lily, you all right?
I know it's silly, but it's been 10 years, Joe.
Well, it's just one picture.
What kind of part is it, Pop?
Well, it's based on a youth program they have up in Mill City.
Joe?
Yeah?
I want you to quit your job.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it.
No, I'm serious. Look, you've been selling encyclopedias and shirts and shoes for 10 years.
Honey, it's only a 3-week guarantee.
I don't care. You're an actor. You should be acting. You have to go on location, Pop.
Yeah, for the exteriors, they're going to shoot them up in Mill City. The rest is going to be done in a studio in Brooklyn.
Joe, is it over? I mean, is it finally over?
I don't know. Maybe. See, George Vay is doing the producing, but the financing is coming from Comus Productions. Now, that means something.
Thank God. Oh, thank God.
Thank you for everything, especially the last 10 years.
Pop, do you want me to go out to a restaurant? No, very funny. All right, sit down. Listen, tell me about it. What did he say?
Well, he didn't say much.
You got featured billing.
We didn't talk
Listen,
about
tell me
billing.
this. Can you do anything with it?
I don't know. I didn't read the
How
whole
much you
script.
getting, Pop?
We didn't talk about
David!
No.
Would you pass a star's plate, please?
Postcard should be written to Mayor Osterveld and your city council member to protest the presence in the high school library of these magazines presenting clearly subversive material. Flash alert. Bulletin editors have just learned that in the proposed motion picture based on the Mill City Youth Program, the part of the director of the project is to be played by an actor with a record of 7 separate citations of Communist Front affiliation. His name, Joe Lodge.
Larch. L-A-R-C-H. Joe Larch.
Oh, you're right, it is Lodge.
Go ahead.
The bulletin calls this situation to the attention of all Mill City members of the National Security Vanguard League as a public service.
No. No, my husband isn't home right now. No, I don't know when he'll be back. No,
He's at the out of town.
I don't know anything about it. Why don't you call later tonight?
Who's that on the phone?
The Mill City newspapers. Well?
It's on the front page. Charge red fronter in Mill City film. An avalanche of mail today descended on Mayor Harold Osterveld protesting the proposed appearance in a city-approved motion picture of actor Joe Larch. Mr. Larch was named in 1952 in testimony before a congressional committee for membership in several alleged Communist Front organizations.
Go on.
The motion picture to be produced by George Vey is to be based on the work of the Mill City Youth Project and has the official blessing of the city. Mayor Osterwald, questioned at City Hall, stated that the story was news to him and that he was looking into it.
They said looking into it. Maybe that means it'll all blow over.
That reminds me of the vaudeville booker. I went to Hawaii in 1920 to wait till the movies blew over.
Don't, Joe. Please don't, Joe.
What do you want me to do? Knock my head against the wall, rend my garments? What?
10 years. Why? For 10 years, one small part in a movie. Who remembered?
It's in the article. Information about actor Larch was brought to public attention in the bulletin published by the Mill City National Security Vanguard League for its members.
You said that George Vey knew when he hired you.
It was before the bulletin hit the fan.
Oh, what are you going to do, Pop?
I don't know.
Are you just going to let a bunch of crackpots run you out of town?
David, you don't have to worry about this. You have a class going.
What do you mean I don't have to worry about it? It's your first part in 10 years, Pa. It's a chance, Pa.
David, you don't understand.
Oh, yes, I do. I've understood since I was 8 years old. The Blacklist, huh? The Blacklist. You think I don't know why we had to move from Riverside Drive? You think I don't know why you had to borrow money from Uncle Jerry and Grandpa? Blacklist, huh? Boom. There's one thing I didn't understand, Pa. I didn't understand it then, and I still don't understand it. Why didn't you put up a fight? Why didn't you do something? Come on, Pa, tell me. Why didn't you put up a fight?
Well, there was nothing to fight. I was a freelance actor. Suddenly, nobody called. I went to see my agent. I said, what's the matter? I was so naive, I actually didn't know. I mean, nobody came up and told you, you know. All of a sudden, you just didn't work anymore. Listen, in 1952, I made $12,000. In 1953, I made a big zero, nothing.
But you didn't do anything, Pa. You could have sued for libel.
You can't sue the congressional record. Somebody got up before a committee and said, Joe Larch, Joe Larch, Joe Larch. I mean, who should I sue?
You could have made a statement.
David, you were a baby then. You don't know. I wasn't a star. I wasn't important. I was a good character actor, but there were 15 guys in New York who could do it better than me. And if you made trouble, or you sued somebody, or you got yourself before a committee, I want to tell you something, son. You were dead. You were dead. Even if you could win, you were controversial, remember?
Yeah.
Controversial. I was like leprosy. See, you walk down the street and you rang a bell and see the people got out of your way. Unclean, controversial.
Don't make a joke, Joe. Don't make a joke.
I'm not joking, honey. I'm not joking. David, you just didn't live then. I mean, it was like trying to push an avalanche back. I knew stars. Wonderful actors. I mean, really wonderful actors. They were buried, just buried.
Okay, Pop. That was then. Now, what are you going to do now? Are you going to do the same thing? Are you going to let them do the same things to you? Are you just going to lie down and go quietly?
David, now you don't understand.
Yeah, right. I don't understand. Do you know there's a girl in my American Lit class? She spent a week in jail because of a civil rights demonstration. She did something, Pa! She wasn't afraid! She comes up to here on me. But she wouldn't let them run over her, Pa! She wouldn't let them! Are you gonna let them, Pa? Pa?
Your son. They got a list of my credits. Mr. Larch appeared in such films as No Trumpets, No Drums, The Hurried Man, The City of Night. Oh, they left out a few things. They left out Huberman's restaurant and arts support for young women and girls and old ladies. And...
Oh, Joe, this time, you've got to do something. This is your last chance.
They don't even have a contract with George there.
Oh, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about David. Did you hear him?
He doesn't understand.
I want him to have respect for his father. I want him to understand. I don't give a damn about that blacklist. I don't give a damn about you or me. But you've got to do something this time for David.
Well, actually, Mr. Larch, this is very carefully worded to avoid a libel action. You see, they quote the congressional record verbatim, and they don't characterize any further. They don't even suggest that you shouldn't appear in the film.
I know.
Matter of fact, it's my impression that the Mill City National Security Vanguard League has the services of a first-rate libel lawyer. I notice they don't actually call anyone a communist directly.
Believe me, they don't have to. They get their point across.
Have you heard anything from Mr. Vay that would suggest that he's under pressure at all?
No, not yet.
Well, these charges that were made against you go back to 1952. Have you ever denied them publicly?
No.
Why not?
They're true. Well, it goes back to the late 30s. The Civil War was going on in Spain. There were a lot of committees here to support the loyalists, you know, the anti-Franco forces.
Yes, I know.
Well, I joined one, actually two. One was to protest the embargo, and the other was a war relief committee. Now, I appeared in benefits to raise money for these committees. But everybody was doing something like that in those days. I thought it was right.
And these organizations were later accused of being communist fronts.
Yes.
But you were no longer a member at that time.
No. I just dropped out of the relief committee. I was getting too busy. I was doing a radio soap.
And the other, the anti-embargo group?
Well, that was actually out of existence, 5 years before it came up in front of the committee.
Well, did you know there were communists in these organizations?
Well, after my experience, I wouldn't want to say who was a communist and who wasn't. Oh, I guess there were. There must have been. There was one man who said he was a member of the party. He was a cellist.
And you never repudiated your membership in these organizations?
No. I believed it was right to support the Spanish Republican government. Looking back on it, I still believe it was right.
How was your membership discovered?
Now, somebody got up before a congressional committee. There were membership lists. The newspaper published articles about the benefits. My name was there.
And that's all?
That was enough. The list was reprinted in private newsletter. I just didn't get work anymore.
But you weren't called to testify.
I wasn't important. Outside of the business, I don't think anybody knew who I was.
Couldn't you ask to testify?
What for? What could I say? Yes, I was a member of the committee. Yes, I did appear at benefits. Yes, I believe I was right. What good would that do? I thought it would be better to let things lie. Of course, that didn't work out either, did it?
And those were the only charges against you?
No. When the blacklisting started, I joined a committee against blacklisting. I was named for that, too.
That was the only action you took?
There wasn't anything else I could do. Listen, if you tried to fight, you got pushed deeper and deeper. Sure, there were some people who could clear themselves, confess in public, or can say what they did was wrong, but I don't believe what I did was wrong. And the truth of it is, I don't think they would be interested in a small-time character actor, even if I wanted and tried to clear myself.
Well, then why do you come to us now?
Well, I have my reasons. Mr. Preston, I have a son, 19. He asked me, why did you make it easy for them, Pop? Why didn't you fight them? Well, this time, even if I lose, I want to say to him, David, I fought.
I think you may be a little bit premature, Mr. Larch. Nothing's happened so far except one newspaper headline, and one small extremist group has its membership all worked up. That doesn't necessarily mean that anything will happen.
Mr. Preston, I'm not a lawyer. I haven't studied. I haven't gone to college. But I am an expert on one thing, a blacklist. Something will happen.
Mayor Osterfeld's office?
No, he has no comment this time. He's studying the matter. Mayor Osterfeld's office. Yes, but just a minute. He's studying the matter. Yes, Mayor Osterfeld's office.
As a mother of three, I protest the bringing of a commie actor from New York to smear Mill City with the poison of international communism. Lloyd, we've got a hot potato on our hands.
How many pieces of mail you got?
Maybe 150. Who is this Larch, anyway? You ever hear of him before?
No.
Is he a Red?
I don't know. All I heard was in the Times Courier. Now, look, Harold, you know what's behind all this. Judson Kyle and his Vanguard League.
And this one says I'm a communist.
Well, he can start a letter campaign at the drop of his mimeograph.
No, that's not the point. Harrison picked it up in the Times Courier, didn't he? I've got to make a statement. How long can I stall?
Judd Kyle can't hurt you. He's got a membership of about 100.
Lloyd, what's the matter with you? I've got a municipal budget to get through. It's up 12% from last year. I got to ask for a 2-point rise in the real estate tax. And Charlie Vernacchio is trying to knock out my youth program completely. I don't need any red issue. Who brought up this movie business anyway?
Well, that was your idea, you remember? The picture was going to open up about a month before election. All right, I guess you're right. Well, I can keep a couple of the boys on the council in line. But Charlie, he'll beat you on the head with this if he can.
I don't know. How long did it take to get that youth program through? It's a good program. It's good for the city. We're up for the youth program of the year for it. And Judd Kyle has to have a gallbladder attack and take it out on paper. What does he care whether this Joe March gets in a movie or not?
Larch.
All right, Larch. What's he gonna do? Steal the plans for the city sewage disposal and send them to Moscow?
All right, Harold, but what are you gonna do?
They call that movie man George Vay. Tell him I want to see him right away.
The mayor was very reasonable about it. He's in a very difficult position politically.
Did he make any direct suggestions about Mr. Larch's employment?
No. He seemed to think that the whole thing was a whole lot of nonsense. He sounded like a very liberal man.
I'm sure he is. Well, then there's no problem about Mr. Larch, is that?
Oh, no. That's part of my agreement with the city officials. I have complete artistic control. They can only request script changes on factual mistakes. They have nothing whatsoever to say about casting.
I see.
But, Joe, I want you to know one thing. I'm going to get you on this picture. I'm going to fight all the way down the line for you.
I know, George.
Now, here it is. The whole trouble is coming from a man named Judson Kyle. He's a retired manufacturer or something. The Vanguard League is his hobby. He supports it completely, spends all of his time on it. Now, Mayor Osterveld seems to feel that if things were calmed down, the atmosphere would be better for the picture politically. He seems to feel it's something to be worked out with Kyle.
George, see, this has been tried before. I mean, there is no easy way out.
Joe, does it hurt to try?
No.
Look, we're in this project together. We want to make a great picture, don't we, Joe?
Sure.
Well, is there any harm if Mr. Preston talks to Mr. Kyle, explains the situation, works it out?
I think Mr. Bay is right. These things can be settled sensibly through a disinterested third party.
Well, fine. Go ahead, Mr. Preston.
1952. That was a good year. A very good year. We cleaned a lot of them out that year. I think we claimed 37. Shot out of the air. Shot out of the air. I believe that's right, isn't it, Louise?
I think so, Mr. Kyle. I'd have to look it up.
Would you believe it, Mr. Preston? In 1952, I think it was 52, although it may have been 53, we were able to get 7,000 letters on 5 days' notice protesting the appearance of that woman in Pittsburgh. I don't remember her name, but she had quite a record. Quite a record. Front affiliations, you know. But we got her. We got her. I think it's safe to say that the screen and the airways were relatively clean then. But they're creeping back. Wasn't it Jefferson who said, eternal vigilance?
I think he was referring to the price of liberty.
Yes. Yes, of course.
About the matter of Mr. Larch, I thought perhaps if I explained the circumstances...
Yeah. Shocking. Now, that's what I mean. Here's a man with a record. A record. And he's coming back in a motion picture under official government sponsorship. Whoa.
Mr. Kyle, I'm an attorney, and I'm very well acquainted with the statutes protecting us against subversion, espionage, and treason. Don't you think it's more appropriate to handle these matters by law
rather than private action.
That's the trouble. Now, what's the use of having a law when they're in the courts? In the district attorney's office, in the attorney general's office. They've reached into the highest courts, the highest courts. They, in the diplomatic service, in the newspapers, in the radio, in the television. They've wormed their way in. Parasites, vermin, rats.
About the case of Mr. Larch, what if we were to make a statement, perhaps write a letter explaining the charges against him?
You see, they're very clever. They'll swear to anything, you know. They'll lie. Now, Mr. Preston, I warn you to be very careful. It's poison, and it spreads by contagion. We have cases, attorneys, who are with them. There's only two sides, you know. You're either for them or against them. Which side are you on, Mr. Preston? Which side?
I don't think we're going to accomplish anything at this meeting, Mr. Kyle. It's Lofting.
They think they'll creep back. We're waiting. We'll get them. Vigilance. Eternal vigilance.
Mr. Preston, may I speak to you for a moment? An amazing man, isn't he?
Yes.
Great energy and dedication.
Miss Lofting, it's late time.
Yes, I just wanted to have a word with you on this large case. You see, Mr. Kyle is an idealist. He takes a very undiluted position. Now, you spoke of a statement. Well, an explanation.
Yes?
Now, in our experience, a lot of people got themselves mixed up in these front organizations by mistake. They were duped.
Well?
You see, these things can be arranged. Actually, I've helped a lot of men and women rehabilitate themselves. I like to think that's my contribution.
Rehabilitation?
Well, yes. After all, if they've seen the error of their commie associations, it seems only right to give them a hand.
Mr. Kyle doesn't seem to think so.
Well, I have a great deal of influence with Mr. Kyle. We've usually been able to advise people how to overcome this situation.
We?
My brother has a consulting public relations service.
And you think he could help Mr. Larch if he were retained?
I'm sure he could.
You're Mr. Kyle's confidential secretary, aren't you?
Yes.
And he depends on you a great deal in his activities for advice.
Yes. Actually, I'm the only full-time paid staff personnel for the League.
I see. Well, I'll report your suggestions to my client. Good evening.
No. If I wanted to do something like this, I would have done it 10 years ago. Look, Mr. Preston, when this whole blacklisting thing started, I was angry. All day, all night, angry. I got a pretty good start on an ulcer, and I had to go on a bland diet. If somebody had come up to me with an offer of a payoff, I would have taken a swing at him. But then after about a year, my unemployment insurance ran out. I started living off my brother and my father-in-law. Well, maybe then I wouldn't have been so noble. Maybe then I would have said, hey, Joe, take care of yourself. But after 10 years, I'm not even tempted.
Well, I want you to be absolutely sure. Miss Lofting did intimate that she could stop the pressure.
Yeah, and I'll bet you can. She started in the first place. It's a payoff, straight payoff.
That's a quick jump to a conclusion. It's not as simple as that. I thought I ought to report it to you. This Judson Kyle, he's a little obsessive, but completely sincere. And Miss Lofting didn't invent Spain or the Communist Front organizations or the Cold War.
Well, now, wait a minute. What side are we on here? I don't see what difference it makes if Judson Kyle is sincere. So is Hitler, but that's not the point. We've got to find some way of attacking this whole blacklist system right head on.
That's not our job. We've been retained to consider Mr. Larch's interest.
All right, but you're not advising him to pay off this woman, surely, are you?
We'll talk about it.
Well, that's the issue. Mr. Larch comes to us to fight, to expose this whole rotten system of blacklisting. You can't tell him to start by paying off a blackmailer.
We're conferring with a client.
Oh, I mean...
Oh, look. I understand. Why don't I wait outside for a minute? I have to call my wife anyway.
Use the phone out here.
All right, I know.
Don't you ever do that again in front of him.
Well, okay, what about you wrapping my knuckles in front of him? It's not easy being in partnership with your father.
It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm your father. I don't expect my junior law partner to start an emotional argument like that, jumping in before we had a chance to study.
I don't see what we have to study. It's rotten right on the face of it. Look, even a narcotics addict is innocent till proven guilty, but not with a blacklist. They don't have to prove anything. Accuse, and that's enough. It's a heresy hunt, a lynching for unpopular political opinion. And besides that, what right does Judson Kyle have to be prosecutor, judge, jury, and executioner alike?
Are you all through?
No. What do you want me to be, professionally objective?
You might be able to help Mr. Larch a lot better if you were.
You're not going to let him give in to blackmail.
That's his decision. I don't give moral advice. It's too easy for us. We have nothing at stake, and he has.
All right, but what about this blacklist thing, Dad? That's what's subversive. It's a lot clearer and more present a danger than left-wing politics left over from 1937. There's got to be some way we can attack the whole situation.
We're not involved with the whole situation. Just Joe Larch. The worst thing we could do is jump in before we know where we're going. To rush into some legal action that might freeze everybody's position. The mayor hasn't committed himself yet. The city council still has to vote on final approval for the film.
Sure, that'll be some picnic, too.
And George Vey says he still backs Joe Larch all the way. As soon as he has a signed contract with Mill City, he'll be in full control.
And when does that happen?
Tuesday night at the regular council meeting.
There's a picket line outside. You know, keep Mill City American, that sort of thing. See that man over there waving his glasses?
One way and no way.
That's Charles Monarchio. He's the opposition. He wanted to cut the youth program out of the budget last year. This whole thing gives him an issue on a platter. The mayor's in trouble. If they approve my agreement, the opposition will claim he's soft on communism or something like that. If it gets turned down, it's a political defeat.
The meeting will come to order. The chair will entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the last regular meeting.
So moved. Second.
Hearing no objections, the motion is so carried. Now, first on the agenda, reports from the Departments of Sanitation, the Water Supply, and the...
Mayor.
Councilman Menacchio?
With the council's permission, I'd like to suggest that we consider item 5B first.
That's us.
5B. Well, if there are no objections, 5B, a contract between the city and George Vey Productions giving official permission and cooperation for the production of a motion picture based on the work of Mill City Youth Program. I believe you all have copies of the proposed agreement. The floor is now open for discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I have a statement. I move the point.
Don't mind, sir.
I have a statement.
The chair recognizes Mr. Hickman.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the matter of the picture agreement be tabled for further study.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
Mr. Mayor, I have a statement on this very serious question, and I demand to be
There's
heard.
a motion to table before the council. All further discussion is therefore out of order.
Just a minute,
I'm sorry, Councilman. A motion to table takes precedence with no debate. All in favor of the motion to table for further study?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The motion is carried. The matter is tabled. There will be no further discussion on the item. Now, item 1 on the agenda, an interim report from the Department of Sanitation on the purchase of 5 street sweepers, a result of bids submitted pursuant to City Council resolution dated 12th of October of this year. I believe you all have copies of the proposed agreement. The floor is now open for discussion. The chair recognizes Mr. Hickman.
Mr. Preston. Very shrewd. Very shrewd. A very good move for Hal Oswald.
You mean tabling the proposal for the movie until further study?
Now, no one can hold him responsible for this large business. He doesn't have to commit himself. This gives us time. I mean, if Joe Larch has the right kind of advice, well, by the time it comes up again, we might be able to clear him.
You mean retain your brother?
Well, how do you feel about it?
I'd be very happy to tell you how I feel about it, Miss Lofting. In fact, if... That's not what I'm here for. I've reported your offer to my client. He doesn't want that kind of public relations advice. I find I agree with him, rather strongly.
He's making a mistake. Hal Ostervelt wouldn't make that kind of mistake. He knows the first rule of politics. Get the heat off yourself onto somebody else. The heat's on Mr. Vey now.
Mrs. Larch. I'm Kenneth Preston. Mr. Larch phoned me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was expecting a much older man.
Oh, that's my father. Well, he's out of town on a case today. And Mr. Larch said it was urgent, so I came.
Come in. Joe, it's the lawyer. Let me take your coat first.
Well, I didn't mean for you to come to the house.
Well, I got a message that said it was urgent.
Well, I could have come to your office. Sit down, Mr. Preston.
Thank you. What is it?
Well, I got the call today. The call. At the store. Well, you know I work in a shoe store. I didn't give the job up. It was from Maggie Daly. She's in George Vay's office. She's, I don't know, casting, production assistant. I want to see if I can get it right. She said, hello, Mr. Larch? And I said, yes. And she said, this is Maggie Daly.
Joe, don't give a performance. Just tell Mr. Preston.
Well, she said, Mr. Vay asked me to call you. And then she said, very flat, as though she were reading from notes, there have been revisions on the script. The part now calls for a younger man. You won't be needed. Oh, and then she said, personally, I'm going out now and get a job poisoning orphans. It's cleaner.
She meant they didn't want you for the part.
What do you think it means? George Vay caved in.
Can he do that? Accepting it at its face value, can he replace you that way? Are there any union regulations?
Well, I didn't have a contract.
Mr. Larch, you are sure this is because of the blacklist, are you?
No, Mr. Preston. They suddenly found out they could get Sir Lawrence Olivier for Pop's part.
David, don't butt in.
Well, I'd like to talk this over with my father tomorrow morning.
Mr. Preston, what do they want from Joe? He's an actor, a character actor, just a small part.
No.
What do they want from him? Why does it hurt them for him to act? What do they do it for? What kind of men are they?
Very ordinary men. Is there anything we can do?
Well, I don't think it's over yet, no. I think there must be some legal recourse.
Forget it, Pop. It's too late. Tomorrow you open at Fine Art Shoes for an indefinite engagement.
David, I know you're concerned, but you're not helping any, you know?
Mr. Preston, a college education occasionally comes in handy. There's an appropriate quotation from Dickens. The law. The law is an ass, an idiot.
Well, that's been said before.
Well, there's got to be some attack on it. You sure about libel?
Absolutely. There's no action possible. The newspaper stories were factual, and Larch himself admits that what they say is true. Where's the libel?
Well, there must be some precedent. People must have taken some legal action. A blacklist.
Usually it's for conspiracy, and several companies may agree not to hire certain people. That can be illegal. But it's very difficult to prove, and I don't think the notoriety would do our client much good.
What do we do?
I'm going with him to George Vay's office tomorrow.
How come?
I can't believe that face-to-face we can't work something out.
That's what you said when you went to see Judson Kyle.
There's a difference. Vay is not a fanatic or corrupt. He's a reasonable man. So is Mayor Ostervelt. He should be able to work something out with reasonable, honest men.
I'd feel better if we had an ace up our sleeves. Take some direct attack on the whole blacklist.
All right, suppose you look for one. We can try it both ways. Negotiation and attack.
Mr. Vay will see you now.
Thanks, Maggie.
Don't be nice. Let him have it.
Sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Preston.
Yes, I understand you were tied up.
You understand, I'm embarrassed about this whole thing. Look, Joe, you've been in the business a long time. You know how it is. Actually, we've been thinking of shuffling the character for some time. Way back even before I talked to you. I could show you memos from Comus. You know how it is. You have to have teenage identification. They've been after me to get a Sal Mineo type for the kids, you know. So, it's being rewritten, that's all. Well, you know how it is. It didn't have anything to do with that other business. That's all there is to it. Now, look, Mr. Preston, there was no signed contract. We never made a deal. Look, suppose I pay Joe for a week anyway, just for his trouble.
We didn't come to discuss that.
Now, look, Joe, don't try to make trouble for me. What do you want? What'd you bring a lawyer for?
We want to discuss the situation.
What situation? There's no situation. Look, Joe, I told you. We're just rewriting, that's all. It's an artistic decision. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. Look, Joe, let me alone. Let me alone.
George, why are you mad with me? I mean, it was your idea I'd be in the picture. You called me.
Joe, I'm sorry. I can't do anything. Look, you know I wanted to use you. It isn't me.
Who told you you can't hire Joe Larch?
Nobody told me. Who has to tell anybody? You were at that city council meeting. They tabled my agreement. Did anybody have to tell me why? I got called in at Comus. Without that city approval, I have nothing. My financing set up, my distribution set up, nothing.
Did the financing company put pressure on?
They didn't say anything. They just pointed out that if I didn't have that city official approval, I didn't have a picture, and it's true. They didn't mention your name over there, Joe. I did. I said to Jackman, look, Joe Larch is the best man for the part. You know what he said to me? We leave all artistic decisions up to you. What decisions? Look, Joe, I worked for 4 years to put together this package. My first feature. 4 years from nothing. I put it together from spitting adhesive tape. And if I don't have that city approval, those 4 years can go down the garbage can. Does anybody have to tell me anything? What am I, a child? Look, I have a choice. I can make my picture without Joe, or I can't make it at all.
You just infer that.
Infer. Now, don't you give me lawyer's talk. There it is. It's reality. It's the world. It's show business, damn it. Look, Joe, you got no right to ask me to throw away 4 years just like that. What good would it do? Suppose I went to Comus and I said, if Joe Larch goes, I go. You know what they'd say to me? Goodbye and good luck. What good would it do?
I don't know, George.
You'd still be in the shoe store and I'd be right there beside you. Why should I have to sacrifice everything? What did I do? Did I get mixed up with some communist fund organization? Why should I get torn apart?
I don't know.
Joe, before I had Maggie call you, I suffered. I'm telling you, I suffered.
Yeah, well, don't worry about it too much, George. If it's any comfort to you, next time you won't suffer as much. You'll go calluses.
Joe, believe me.
I believe you. This time you're outraged, but the next time and the next time and the next time, see, it'll just get easier and become an inconvenience.
Joe, I swear to you, if I could get that official city approval, I'd use you in my picture and I'd tell Comus to go take a walk around the block. I swear to you.
What do you want, George? Absolution?
Joe, I tried, didn't I?
You knew this could happen. If you weren't going to put on a fight, why did you call on a... Why did you dig me out of the shoe store if you were going to fold up under the first push?
I tried, didn't I? In 10 years. Who else even tried, Joe?
Now you can have it both ways. You have your picture and the nice, comfortable feeling that you're a fine, liberal man of goodwill.
Joe, don't be bitter.
Don't be bitter. I'm grateful. Listen, if there's ever anything I can do for you, you need a pair of shoes, you come in and see me, and I'll take care of myself.
One thing clear, Mr. Preston. I never suggested to Mr. Bay that he get rid of this actor. You understand that, don't you?
Yes, that's what he told me.
I merely recommended to certain councilmen that the agreement be restudied.
Well, it seems everybody got the message. Frankly, sir, if Joe Larch's name hadn't appeared in that bulletin, would the agreement need so much further study?
It's a dirty business, Mr. Preston. The whole thing, from one end to the other. Judge Kyle, who sees communists under his bed, and Louis Harrison down at the newspaper, who can smell a scandal a mile away, and Charlie Monacchio, who knows how to use it, and me. I include myself, because I'm too vulnerable to do anything about it. Mr. Preston, when you're out in the open with people taking pot shots at you, you're very exposed. I've got to play it safe.
Do you really believe the charges against Joe Larch?
Yes and no. I understand he had joined something or other in 1937, but if you mean, do I think that he's a threat to national security now? No.
Then why not let him work?
I'm not afraid of him. He can't hurt me. But Kyle and Harrison and Monacchio can. I've got a job to do. I've got to run the city. I've got to ram taxes down the throats of my constituents. And I've got to get reelected.
Mayor Osterveld thinks it's ridiculous off the record. But he's got to play it safe, so on the record, it's been tabled for further study.
Well, I'd like you to look over this memorandum on a prima facie tort approach. I think I've got something, Dad. I think it's a whole new attack on the blacklist, about 40 pages. I told Mr. Larch that you'd look it over tonight.
Okay.
Mr. Preston, I'm no lawyer. What's a prima?
What? Prima facie tort? Well, it's a legal term, of course. It means, not a legal wrong on the face of it. See, what I've done is to attack it as a violation of a property right. Now, the right to carry on a lawful business like acting is a property right. See? George Bay can decide not to hire you. That's his right. But if he's induced or coerced by an intermeddler to refuse to hire you, he's infringing on your rights.
Intermeddler, is that what the law calls it?
Yeah, there's a Supreme Court ruling on it, you see. It's a whole new way of looking at it. So you don't sue for libel and you don't sue for breach of contract. You serve the intermeddler himself for damages.
Well, that would be Judson Kyle.
And the mayor and Comus Corporation and anybody who induces George Bay not to hire you when he wants to. Well, he's going to be about an hour when he gets over to eat here. Okay. Malice and Intent. I think it was published in 1895. Why, didn't I list that?
I might have missed it.
Oh. Well, what do you think?
It's good law. It's ingenious. I haven't checked all the cases, of course, but you're well researched. And I think you've met the justification question. And it does attack the whole blacklist issue head on.
Good. I can dictate the complaint tomorrow morning to Helen when she comes in. We can serve him by, let's see, Wednesday. And I'd like to serve Judson Kyle myself.
No.
What do you mean, no?
We can't take it into court.
Why not? You yourself said it's good law. I've got precedents. We can prove damage.
It's good law, yes, on paper. Or in an article in a law school journal. But not in court.
Why not?
Because we can't prove that Judson Kyle's action was directly responsible for Mr. Larch's firing.
Oh, Dad, I know it was. You know it was. Everybody knows it was.
Yes, what everybody knows can't often be proven in court. George Fay can swear that he's rewriting the script because of an artistic decision. Can we prove it's not so? The mayor and the city council have a right to reconsider city business. Can we prove it's a result of political pressure? And Comus, they have the easiest out of all. They can say, well, we only promised to finance the picture if he had official city...
All right. What about cause and effect? Kyle prints his bulletin, the newspaper blows it up, the city puts pressure on George Bay, and he fires Mr. Larch. That's cause and effect right there.
Ken, this whole blacklisting thing works like some vague poisonous fog. Nobody tells anybody anything. They know. They get the message, and you can't prove anything. Everything is understood. What can you prove by that? It's good law. And we know in our heart and soul it's true. But we can't prove it in a court.
There's no cause of action for Mr. Larch. They get away with it, and there's nothing that we can do.
Not in a practical way, no.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Larch. I guess your son was right. The law is an ass.
Excuse me, Mr. Larch. Go ahead. I'll have to talk to my son when I get home.
What's the use?
It's beautiful, and I'm proud of you. But maybe we've won too often. Maybe it's made us a little bit arrogant.
What do you mean, arrogant?
Well, as I've often said, the law is man-made and therefore imperfect. Not every story in life ends satisfactorily. Neither does the law. Sometimes everything ends up in the air. No rescue, no climax, not even a good rousing disaster.
I was sure I had it. There had to be some way.
Perhaps next time. We don't always have the answer. There are injustices in the world. And they're not always solved at the last moment by some brilliant point of law at a dramatic moment. Things don't always work out the way we want them to. You'll get used to it.
Yeah, I guess it will.
Sorry we ran out on you, Mr. Lodge.
That's all right. I had to get home anyway.
I'm sorry, too, Mr. Lodge.
That looked pretty good for an hour there, didn't it?
Well,
Intermeddler, that's what they call it?
that's what they call it.
We could try it, I suppose. It's time-consuming, costly. Practically speaking,
No, I'll take your word for it. I don't have the money for a grand gesture that doesn't have much chance of working. You know, Mr. Preston, this whole thing, blacklisting, throwing people out of their jobs because of their political beliefs, it sort of grows out of a atmosphere. People are afraid of communists and socialists and folk singers. They're not sure who, anybody. Of course, 10 years ago it was worse, even 5, but it's still going on. Not in the headlines, but there are still actors like myself who can't work, and newspapermen who can't work, and teachers who can't work. I guess it'll get better when people start believing in... They start believing in what they say they're defending, huh? And they believe in the Constitution. Well, good night. Thanks anyway. Am I supposed to sign out here?
Yeah. Right here. Please. Say, I seen you before somewhere. Oh, a couple of nights ago on the early show, they had an old movie, huh?
The Hurried Man.
Yeah, that's it. And you took part of detective, huh? Well, you are actor, huh?
Well, I was once.
Joe Large. Oh, you are very good.
Thank you.
Listen, would you do me a big favor? For my wife, she would get a big kick out of it. Would you write me your autograph? Here, on this old bill, yeah?
Sure.
Just write to Selma.
Some.
Oh? She'll get a big kick out of it. Thank you very much, Mr. Larch. Good night, Mr. Larch.
Thank you.